Right now in South Korea, you can leave your $1,000 laptop on a cafe table. Walk away to grab a sandwich 3 blocks away, come back 1 hour later, and find it exactly where you left it. It is arguably the safest place on the planet. You can walk through a dark alley at 3 in the morning without a care in the world. But apparently, if you are a guy just trying to get to work so you can pay your bills, you aren't a neighbor anymore, you are a biological weapon of mass destruction. We are living in a time where the simple act of asking someone to move their car has been transformed into a life-threatening horror movie. And the logic behind it is so twisted, it makes a pretzel look like a straight line. Picture this. It is 3:33 am, most of the world is dead asleep. But one man is getting ready for an early shift. He walks out to his car, and what does he find? He's been completely boxed in. Another car is double parked right behind him, effectively turning his driveway into a prison cell. And here is the kicker. The driver didn't leave the car in neutral so it could be pushed. No, she engaged the parking gear and walked away. This wasn't an accident. This was a physical deadbolt. The person responsible is what locals call a cat feeder. Someone who thinks their personal mission to distribute kibble to stray felines is a holy crusade that overrides every single rule of living in a civilization. But 30 minutes, this woman is out there doing her thing while the man's phone is blowing up. He's sending texts, he's calling, he's saying, hey, please move your car, I'm going to be late for work. Simple, right? Normal human interaction, right? Wrong. When this woman finally decides to check her phone, she doesn't see a frustrated neighbor who just wants to go to his job. She sees a predator. She later claims that her entire body froze in terror. She says she felt the exact same level of existential dread as people felt during a recent horrific stabbing spree that happened in a completely different part of town. She takes a minor traffic inconvenience and weaponizes a national tragedy to make herself the center of a drama that didn't exist. Instead of saying, oh man, I'm so sorry I blocked you, she calls the police. Not because she's being chased, not because there's a fire, but because she wants an armed escort to walk 10 feet and move her own illegally parked car. It is the ultimate display of the main character syndrome, where your feelings are so precious that the reality of everyone else around you just ceases to exist. But why would anyone actually demand this kind of response? Why would a person choose to call the cops instead of just moving their car and saying sorry? If you peel back the layers, you find a really dark part of the human ego that has been supercharged by a very specific kind of online culture. In this world, victimhood is the highest form of social currency. It's like a weird stock market where the more traumatized you claim to be, the more power you have over others. If this woman admits she was just being selfish and lazy, she's just a person who messed up. But if she claims she was terrified for her life, she suddenly becomes a survivor. She becomes a hero who navigated a dangerous encounter with a scary man. By framing a guy who just wants to go to work as a threat, she instantly wipes away her own guilt. It is a ruthless calculation in a society where everyone is aggressively fighting for a piece of the financial pie, and social status being beyond reproach is the ultimate goal. If you can convince the world you're a victim, you never have to be responsible for anything you do. You can block driveways, you can ignore the law, and the moment someone calls you out on it, you just pull the emergency brake on reality and scream that you're scared. You have to wonder, how did we get to a point where a neighborly dispute becomes a police matter? It's all about the way our modern cities have changed how we see each other. In these massive, high-density apartment complexes, the person living 20 feet away from you isn't a person. They're an obstacle. We've replaced that old-school sense of community and looking out for each other with a cold, hard focus on absolute rights. People feel they have the right to do whatever they want. And any interference with that, even if they're objectively breaking the rules, is seen as an act of aggression. The woman in this story feels she has a sacred right to feed cats at 3 am. The man's need to earn a living is just an annoying background noise to her. And the online community she hangs out in only make it worse. They function like an echo chamber where everyone is constantly telling each other that the world is out to get them. They told her to change her phone number. They told her to move houses. They treated the man like a stalker because he had the audacity to ask her to move her car 4 times in 30 minutes. They even looked down on his job because he had to work that early, showing a nasty streak of classism hidden under their supposed social justice. So what happens when people get exactly what they asked for? What happens when we actually treat these fake threats like they're real? You get a complete backfire that turns society into a circus. We are seeing the death of direct communication. Instead of knocking on a door or answering a text, people are using the state as a personal concierge service. The police are being used as bodyguards for people who are just too embarrassed to face their own mistakes. It is a grotesque waste of resources, while actual crimes might be happening elsewhere. Officers are forced to show up to a parking lot because someone's ego is too fragile to handle a conversation. The system is failing because it assumes everyone is acting in good faith. It assumes that if you say you're scared, there's a reason for it. But when you start using that fear as a weapon to avoid a parking ticket or an apology, you're breaking the social contract for everyone else. The irony here is so thick you could cut it with a knife. These people claim to live in a dystopian war zone, yet they have zero problem wandering around in the dark to feed stray animals. Their fear is incredibly selective. It only shows up when it's time to take accountability. If you're brave enough to go out at 3 a.m. to find cats, you're brave enough to move your car. But that doesn't fit the narrative. This is the evolution of a global trend, where people film themselves crying in fear the moment they get caught doing something wrong. They use their phone cameras and the police as a shield to hide the fact that they are the ones causing the problem. It's a glitch in the matrix of human decency. We built these systems to protect the vulnerable, but now they're being hijacked by the entitled to oppress the people who are actually trying to keep society running. If we keep going down this road, we're looking at a future where nobody talks to anyone. We'll have apps to hire mediators just to tell someone they dropped their wallet, because we're too afraid of the potential drama. We are rewarding people for being fragile instead of being responsible. We've replaced shame with validation. Nobody is allowed to be wrong anymore. Everyone has to be a victim of something. The man who tried to go to work at 3:33 a.m. is the real loser in this story. Not because he was blocked, but because he realized he lives in a world where working hard and following the rules makes you the villain in someone else's manufactured fantasy. In the end, it's like someone holding up a golden shield to protect themselves from the sun, while everyone around them is freezing in the shadow they're casting. They think their good deed is the center of the universe, but they're really just using it as an excuse to be a terrible neighbor. It's like setting your neighbor's house on fire to keep a kitten warm, and then calling the cops to arrest the neighbor for being too loud while he tries to put out the flames. We are more connected than ever, but we're using that connection to build walls of subjective trauma. Those texts sent at 3 a.m. weren't a threat. They were the sound of a society that is still trying to function, to work, and to be productive. When we silence that with a police siren, we aren't making things safer. We're just proving that we've lost the ability to live together. It's the ultimate irony of our modern world. We claim to care so much about everything, yet we have zero empathy for the human being standing right in front of us. Fuel the truth at Dating in Korea. Support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.